Big Idea 1 is the process of evolution drives the diversity and unity of life. The theory of evolution states that individuals within a species should provide degrees of variation, and those individuals with characteristics best suited to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. This theory grew from studying variations and similarities in living animals, plants, and fossils. The study of the number and placement of fossils within certain areas of rocks are called fossil records. It gives an indication of the types of animals and plants that existed in the past. Paleontologists are scientists who study fossils to learn about life in the past. Fossils allow these scientists to determine features of extinct species and compare the features of species from different periods in history. I went to the Falls of Ohio to find fossils. It was difficult looking for them at first, but I found a few. Once I found them, it was nice to compare what I seen. I seen some that looked like shells and others that looked like plants. I learned that by studying fossils, evidence for evolution is revealed.
Big Idea 2. Biological systems utilize free energy and molecular building blocks to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain dynamic homeostasis. Big Idea 2 is about how all life requires free energy and that the goal of life is to make ATP so that we, as organisms, can utilize that energy. There are two strategies. There's a strategy used by autotrophs, which are organisms that make their own food, such as plants. There's another strategy used by heterotrophs, which are organisms that eat their food, such as humans. Plants play a big part of our life, which is why it is important for us to know the way they function. There are autotrophs and there are photosynthetic organisms. They take energy from the sun in both light-dependent reaction and the Calvin cycle. I went to a community garden to explore the process of photosynthesis, and it's a very complex process. During photosynthesis, plants use their energy from sunlight to produce glucose from CO2 in the atmosphere and water absorbed by their roots. The process of photosynthesis occurs when the plant first draws up water through its roots. And then the leaves take up carbon dioxide from the air. The plant then uses the energy from sunlight to turn water and the CO2 into sugars and oxygen. Finally, the plant releases the oxygen into the air and uses the sugars for growth. However, there are also many other autotrophs in the world, but they do not have sunlight available to them. So these organisms are called chemosynthetic organisms, and they use the energy-finding chemicals to make their own food. Life in biology is overall complex, and it's funny how we obtain energy from plants and they also obtain energy from sun.
Big Idea 3 focuses on how living things store, retrieve, transmit, and respond to information essential to life processes. The purpose of Big Idea 3 is gene expression. Gene expression involves two steps in making: transcription and translation. Transcription occurs when DNA in a gene is copied to produce an mRNA. Transcription and translation occur after the mRNA has carried the message from the DNA to the ribosomes. Here in the Louisville Zoo, populations of organisms have different gene expressions. Do you notice any differences between the baby giraffe and the mom giraffe? Well, the baby giraffe has many bigger spots than the mom giraffe. These spots, caused by protein, controls the shape, size, and pattern, so every giraffe has a unique spot pattern. Every organism comes from a common ancestor. Common ancestry between two organisms of different species arise during speciation, in which new species are established from a single ancestral population.
Let's take a look at the snow leopard and tiger from the genus Panthera. Tigers are more closely related to the snow leopards than other felines. This is because they have the most similarities in DNA. Organisms from all over the world come from a common ancestor, and this is just a snippet of it. Big Idea 4. Biological systems interact, and these systems and their interactions possess complex properties. This big idea is all about the different levels of interactions and why life is the way it is today. From the four building blocks of life, macromolecules, to cells, where DNA and energy are synthesized, to the cells organizing themselves into tissues, organs, organ systems, and eventually an organism. In this video, however, we will mainly focus on the communities and interactions between the different species around us. Communities arise from populations which eventually grow until limited by dependent and independent densities such as overpopulation, predators, and natural disasters, and so much more. In the Boone Square Olmsted Park in Louisville, Kentucky, we see many examples of symbiosis. This is moss all over a tree in the park. This is known as commensalism. The moss gains and uses energy from trees, while the tree is unaffected by the presence of the moss. In this case, the moss is the commensal, while the tree is its host. This is another tree covered by moss. Another example of symbiosis in the park is predation. The hosts in the leaves of the trees you're seeing are actually caused by leaf-eating insects. This is predation because the insect gains nutrients while the plant's ability to absorb and store carbon is restricted. We also have organisms interacting with the environment. Example is the bird sitting in the puddle of rainwater. This is for the bird to keep their feathers looking nice and also to conserve energy in the humid environment. There are so many other types of symbiotic relationships in our ecosystems around us.